Take a look here at these pedestals. There's one right here. There's another one over here. These were pedestals for motor generators, and some old pictures we have will show those. Those were part of the big transmitter that was upstairs, and that was before my time, so I don't know all the things they did, but I think one of them produced filament voltage, another one produced bias voltage, and that sort of thing. And then here, we have a massive door here, and that's kind of a strong door, because in this area here, there were big transformers in here for that original RCA 50B transmitter, and they have drains in here. Like over here, there's a drain so that if a transformer were to leak its oil, it would go down to that drain. And this was a whole row of transformers. Then the AC voltage went upstairs and became rectified up there to become part of the transmitter upstairs. I understand this is now out of service, but this is the old tower light controller. And it was kind of interesting because they had banks of capacitors here, which when the contacts would open, those would stay across the contact so that some current would continue to flow to the tower lights out there. They wouldn't go out completely. They would just dim down and then come back up. That extended the life of the bulbs considerably by doing that. But I understand now this is all out of service. In fact, it looks like the switch is off and there's something new out at the tower base, I understand. This room is really before my time, but in talking to some of the old timers, I think that somewhere in here there was a sink, and they would test the water that went through the old transmitter. They had to make sure that water stayed clean, because with 17,000 volts on the plate, you could not tolerate conductive water. So they had to make sure the water was very pure. They'd have I think it was Sparkless or somebody, come up here with a truck and offload hundreds of gallons of water into their tanks and then they'd keep that clean. And of course they would lose some as time went by, and they'd have to replenish that. But it was very important that they had to have that water for the cooling the tubes in the old transmitter. I'm standing on a pedestal here that is where the diesel generator used to be when I worked here. If I remember correctly, that generator was capable of 175 kVA, or approximately 175 kilowatts, for running the transmitter that was put in here in 1959, 1960. The old original transmitter that had the motor generators and all that thing over here didn't have any backup power, but they did go to a diesel generator when they went to the next, what would be transmitter number 2. We're going into this area over here. I believe originally had some water storage tanks, but this was built, this bomb shelter with this cement block here was built, I think during the Cold War. And this is kind of known as the bomb shelter, the idea being that in here you could have a studio, and there's somewhere over here, there used to be on the wall, I don't see it at the moment, oh here it is. Back here, this box was a remote control to turn the transmitter off and on in case you had had fallout that you had to stay away from. You could come in here and kind of survive here, and I think they had food and had a console in here, and this would be a real kind of a desperate emergency studio. It was handmade by the staff. They used that lathe up there to hand make that reel-to-reel tape recorder, and it used to be in the corner over here, and it was really, I never turned it on, never did anything with it, but I looked at the mechanics and said, that's amazing to think that KFI staff back in the probably in the 50s handmade a reel-to-reel tape machine, kind of like the Ampex 350s. I see here a part of the big brown transmitter upstairs, the Continental transmitter, that would be transmitter number 3. Has a voltage regulator here. And I remember this was a big heavy transformer here. This was kind of a chore to get this in place, but interesting to see it's still here. Another remembrance here. This was a air chamber. There used to be a blower, or maybe the blower's inside, I don't remember, I'll have to look. But this used to take in a lot of air and send it up through that hole up there to transmitter number 2. And that's all been abandoned. But that problem was with that we were sucking in a lot of outside air. See, there's air filters on these windows, and we did our best to filter it, but still a lot of dirt would come into that and dirty up the transmitter. We'd have to clean it frequently. Whereas now, don't use this sort of thing anymore. Just have the room closed up, air condition it, and transmitter maintenance becomes far less. One of the reasons that we don't have much in the way of radio frequency interference inside the building here, I believe, is partly due to this good ground system. Look at these. There's about 5-inch wide ground strips there that go down to well down in the earth, and down the bottom there's a big ground cable connected to it for the electrical system. And it goes on up to tie to it went up and tied to the old original transmitter, and then now it's since been expanded out to the new transmitter. So this place has a good ground.
Southern California.
KFI. 640, more stimulating talk radio.
KFI.
AM 640.